we are now going to get into our top 5. Are you ready, Evan Bevins?
I'm ready.
Tell the audience and myself what we put our brains towards here.
Well, I was thinking about doing something with season pass cards. We could do like what the best season pass cards are. What is the most enticing season pass card? In the previous episode, we were talking about the upcoming season, and I said, hey, Captain Carter's cool. She's a popular character, but if you want to make people feel like they need to get the season pass card, why not make it Infinity Ultron?
Right.
So I thought, let's look back at all the season pass cards and which ones were the most enticing. I think my number one card I underestimated was Zabu. Zabu did not sniff this list of the most enticing season pass cards. I misjudged Zabu, but I'm sure I was not alone in that. I feel like unless you are a diehard Kazar fan or someone who gets every season pass, that you were like, really? Kazar's cat? No, like I said, Zabu is one of my favorite cards. Love Zabu, but I had to actually use him to appreciate him. So these are the cards, and maybe they held up the test of time. Maybe they didn't. I'll tell you another one who didn't make my list, and I doubt he made yours. I could be wrong. Good card, but Sebastian Shaw did not care for. Eventually, I saw that Sebastian Shaw worked, but at no point was I like, oh, yeah.
Not interested.
The Benjamin Franklin cosplayer misogynist. Yes. So these are the cards that, either as we were looking at it or thinking about it, these were the cards that would make you say, maybe I ought to get the season pass.
Yeah, for sure.
And, there's some hindsight in it, but I tried to approach mine as like, which one would I be like, that sounds like a really cool card. I mean, well, I won't say any more that didn't make my list, because as we learned last time, wildly divergent lists. I was a little more careful. I went through all the season pass cards, including the ones from when it was in beta testing that I didn't realize were season pass cards.
You might have to educate me on some of those.
I think Nick Fury was a season pass card. The first one I remember when I downloaded the game was Miles Morales, but I think like Thor and Nick Fury were both season pass cards at one point. I think Wave was. So these are the ones that I was like, okay, when it first came out, I think I've demonstrated that there are other factors that go with me getting a season pass card, or maybe it's just I really like that character. But this is the ones that just based on what it could do or might do, which ones were the most enticing.
All right.
I think I set the record for longest explanation of a top 5.
Well, I can say that I'm cheap. So there's a lot of times where I'm just looking at it and I'm like, boy, I really want the card. So yes, enticing it is, but do I spend the money? No. However, there are a couple that got me to spend the money. Here we go. I'm going to start out with number 5.
Okay.
So number 5 for me, the card one of the cards that when I saw it, I was like, okay, I need to go back here real quick and just see when this came out. This dropped. So we were playing. You and I were playing at this point 3 years ago, November of 2022, Black Panther. So I think you said you started playing Spider-Man in October of 2022. So Black Panther was, I immediately was like, okay, this is going to be a card that is going to have an impact. It's going to turn into something big. I can't tell you how many times I remember getting beat or seeing Shuri and Black Panther happening. Shuri doubling Black Panther's power. And then, of course, how many times have you heard us talk about the combo that still happens today? And that is Arnim Zola and Black Panther. That happens. I still see it at least once a week. I'm seeing that combo. So as far as staying power goes, it definitely had it. First time I was playing the game, it was one of the first season passes that were there. It was showing up a lot. And back then, we certainly didn't have as many cards as we do now.
Yeah.
Nowhere near. Black Panther was a big deal. So there you go.
You're right.
So there you go. That's my number 5. Evan Bevins, your number 5.
Black Panther almost made my list.
Almost.
Just barely got squeezed out. There may be a little recency bias here, but this was one that I had decided I've been like, I'm going to skip this one. And then I was like, no, you know what? I want to see how this works. I'm going to go ahead and get it. Fairly recent, Sam Wilson, Captain America.
Okay.
Because you had the shield mechanic that I thought was pretty cool. It's not always just the gameplay. You had the movie coming out. I think legacy characters are cool. I like seeing the next iteration. So I think Sam made a lot of sense picking up the shield. We had a variant of him, but I see him a lot still in the meta. It's not quite a totally new mechanic, but it was a little bit of a different idea. We've always said that we could probably do a top 5 better Captain Americas in Snap than Steve Rogers. They're finally helping him. I'm using him a little more, but it was cool to see a guy who already had an established legacy as the Falcon step into one of the most iconic roles in Marvel. It happened as more than just a variant of the same card. There was a lot of synergy with some other cards, and that was one where I was like, usually I've decided by the time the season rolls around, I'm like, I'm going to get this one. And usually I decide on the first day, this one, I'm like, no, I'm not going to. And I saw it in action and I'm like, yeah, I got to try this out. And, it's still a mainstay in a deck that I regularly use. So number 5 for me, Sam Wilson, Captain America.
All right. Very good pick. What's your number 4 pick?
Number 4 is one that still is a little bit of a unique card. It's not a character by itself, and the character it's most associated with is not part of this card. It does something we all like to do. It brings back a card that's gone. And my number 4 is the Phoenix Force.
Phoenix Force. All right.
So iconic story. They've adapted it in the movies twice. Even though Jean Grey is the one you most often associate with it, the Marvels had a lot of different Phoenix Force hosts in recent years. Maybe not quite as many as people who can lift Mjolnir or who have served as Heralds of Galactus, but it's a club that's getting less and less exclusive all the time. You've got the Phoenix Force and then the ability. It brings back a card that was destroyed and merges with it, and then you can move. So it combines a couple different archetypes, and that's become my go-to for a move deck, is not just the move cards, but having Phoenix bring back the Vulture or Dagger or the Human Torch or Multiple Man and doing some really cool things. So it's got move, it works with destroy, and allows it to merge. We talk all the time about Marvel Snap Team Up and the combos. The Vulture as the Phoenix, aside from being an effective strategy, just makes me laugh. Multiple Man as the host of the Phoenix. Multiple Man does not get the respect he deserves from anybody but Peter David, but it's just cool, and it merges with the card. What could that do with Strange Supreme? It combines it in a way that, aside from the gameplay, kind of fires up your imagination. You can see Dagger being a host for the Phoenix Force, and so that iconic concept with a season pass and the ability to make all these cool combinations, I think made Phoenix Force a very enticing season pass card.
Good pick. You still see Phoenix Force every once in a while pop up.
Oh, yeah.
So it's still got some staying power. Number 4 for me. This was one I actually did spend money on, and this was a season where Iron Patriot showed up. Recently nerfed.
My first cut. He was my first cut.
Oh, was he?
He was number 6 on my list.
Yeah. So recently he was nerfed. His power set originally, and this is what made me go, okay, yeah, I feel like this is worth some money. You would draw you would get a random 4, 5, or 6 cost card, and that card would cost -4 of whatever the cost was. So you could have a 4 cost card that costs 0 in your hand, provided you can win that lane the next turn. And I had a lot of success with Iron Patriot. I spent money, got Iron Patriot, and to this day, you see him, he's able to get you a nice, decent card. His nerf ended up being, they dropped the reduction down to 3 instead of 4. So obviously Second Dinner thought he was a pretty powerful card because they aren't going to throw nerfs around willy-nilly like that. Yeah, that was enticing for sure. It was one where I was like, okay, I want to get my hands on this so I can get some high-cost cards that are very low power. I can't wait and try and turn some games. I found some pretty decent success with them. So there you go. That's my number 4, Iron Patriot.
I think maybe the reason he wasn't as enticing to me, and this has nothing to do with gameplay, is because it's Norman Osborn. I don't know. I didn't, which doesn't make sense. I mean, I could just pretend it's Rhodey. But yeah, but he has been one that worked his way up. I'm going to spend some tokens on this guy. He's on my list now.
Yeah. All right, my number 3.
Maybe we should put a pin in that one.
Put a pin in that one. So then, Evan Bevins, what is your
Hey, finally, we had some overlap.
We did finally. It's taken months, dude.
Yeah.
Taking months.
I don't want to make this competitive, but I'm determined not to lose this top 5. I don't need to win. I just don't need to be utterly disgraced.
What is your number 3?
My number 3, and this is one that I don't know if I wasn't doing season passes at this point or didn't necessarily tempt me, but with the power set and the stature of the character. No, it's not stature. I feel like this was a pretty enticing one, not necessarily a character that I get into. And, that does kind of tend it for me sometimes, but also one that it took a while to get into Snap, Loki.
That's my number 2.
Okay. So now I forget what Loki's abilities and stats have changed a lot, but the idea is that he copies your opponent's deck and gives them -1 cost. And he gives you the whole deck. It doesn't just replace the 6 or 8 cards left in your deck with them. He gives you the whole deck. So he's found a home with Arishem because you've already got +1 energy with Arishem. Loki cuts all that down to one cohesive deck instead of 20 some random cards, and you've got 1 extra energy and they cost 1 less. And just the idea of transforming your whole deck is a very cool concept in Snap. And then Loki has been a fan favorite character for a while, thanks in large part to Tom Hiddleston. I mean, that's my favorite version of Loki. The reason the Dark World has such a forgettable villain is because they were like, we got to have Loki in this thing. He wasn't in the original plan, as I understand it. And everybody was like, we got to have him in this. So I think that's a reason why Loki's popular. I've never seen him that likable and enticing to me in the comics. And I think that card was the season pass card when was it the second season? I think one of the Loki seasons was on Disney Plus. I always joke about villains getting popular enough that they have to force them to be heroes, but Loki's was earned and a compelling story, awesome actor, likable character, and an very interesting card to have in Marvel Snap.
I'm on snap.fan right now, and they have when you click on a card, you can see the card's history, all its modifications, which it's had 7 modifications since its genesis or since being released on September 5th, 2023. First original on reveal was a 3 cost.
Oh yeah.
5 power. And right now he's sitting at 1. He's a 1 cost 2, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
But his on reveal was replace your hand with cards from your opponent's starting deck, give them -1 cost, which I think is what you pretty much have right now.
Yeah. At some point he also drew a card, didn't he?
There you go. Yeah. At one point he was drawing a card as well. So he was really powerful. And looking at it, I was just like, okay, great. Now I can actually use Loki to beat somebody with their deck, and it's going to cost you less. Originally, 3 cost 5 power. That's almost like what Arishem is right now, where he gives you that extra bit of energy. But the thing is, you're copying that person's deck, which means that theme is coming with it. Arishem's a different story. Arishem is just random, whatever. So, but anyway, you say you like the combination of the two. I can't say that I've played the two of them combined in a deck yet, and I need to.
Oh, yeah.
So
Loki is one of Arishem's running mates for sure.
All right. So that was my number 2 and your number 2.
No, that was my number 3.
Your number 3. Then
that's okay, because my number 2 was your number 3.
Okay. Agamotto. I said it last season. I think he's one of the most powerful cards out there. I did not spend the money, but I would have. If I had the cash, I would have got the season pass just so I could have had him because I was, like I said, instant retreating. I was mad because I was like, man, this card is going to defeat me every single time. It's probably not true, but I thought it was tempting enough to spend the money on this. So when it does become available, most likely I'm getting it as soon as I can. I think it adds a lot to the game, in my opinion. It's one of the first cards that really, aside from Yondu, that features Banish, which is interesting. The cards that are actual spells. But anyway, that's my thoughts on Agamotto. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, like I said, last season I wasn't too sure about him, but he's the one that bumped. I was debating between Iron Patriot and Thena, and eventually I was like, it's got to be Agamotto. And he powerful, brings some powerful cards with him, but they do have a cost, so you have to be strategic about where you play them. And like I said, I never felt like it was an automatic loss with Agamotto on the other side. I just knew he could do some damage. I mean, I don't know a lot about the character. He seems like the kind of guy that would give you the shirt off his back. Oh, wait, he's not wearing one.
He already did.
Yeah. It's like, who'd you give it? Isn't that your shirt over there? No, I gave it to a wandering Neanderthal. No, it's right. I saw you take it off. What are you? Stop. We need to cast the spell. Anyway, Agamotto quickly went to the. I was like, oh, do I get this card? Do I get that card? Which one do I get? Oh, Agamotto. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to trying things out. And, yeah, just wanted to get that off my chest.
Oh, look at that. All right, real quick.
Now, I'm curious. I bet we might have one more overlap.
Do you think number one's going to be our overlap?
Maybe. I don't know.
I'll go out on a limb here, and I really don't think it is. There's only a small amount of cards to pick from here. I say small. There's 36. I'm kind of curious. All right, so I'll go first because I really think that mine's going to be a personal thing here.
But the Punisher wasn't a season pass card.
That's correct. That is correct. However, Blink was.
Okay.
I really wanted to spend money on Blink, and I didn't. I think it was maybe a couple seasons later, I finally decided, okay, I'm going to pull the trigger and get my first ever season pass. I wish I would have done it during that season because I'm not saying because her ability puts her over the top, anything like that. I like that character that much, and I like the thought of, what her powers do in the game fit so well with the character. It was the one thing that I was like, I'm going to get this card just for the character alone. And so that was my number one. It was purely personal, just because I love the Exiles. As far as characters go in this game, you and I have talked about it before. I've brought it up a few times. They are getting to the point where they are bringing characters into this you would not have believed that they would have done in the first place. Prehistoric Adventures is a great spotlight. These what-if characters we're getting. Who are some of these people? I don't know who they are, but I love them being in the game because people who have never heard of these characters now have maybe the motivation to go and figure out who these characters are, maybe read some comics with them in it. Blink was that for me. Blink was the one where I was like, I want other people to learn about Blink and find these Exiles comics and really like them because I know I liked them. So that's really the only reason Blink is at number one for me. So you have the floor, sir. So go ahead.
The first season pass card I got was Elsa Bloodstone because I think Elsa Bloodstone's cool. He hasn't endured, but yeah, the one I went with is one that, I mean, I've made a couple jokes, Zabu and Sebastian Shaw aren't going to, the mechanic, absolutely, but there's not a lot of diehard Sebastian Shaw fans out there. And if there are, Marvel has better to offer you. Just read some more comics or ask yourself why you like Sebastian Shaw. Zabu, no, if Zabu floats your boat, go for it. It's cool to get a headlining character that's going to generate a lot of interest, like Loki. I consider Sam Wilson Captain America to be that. This guy's even bigger. I love alternate versions of characters. I've been on record saying I'll take War Machine over Iron Man and Thunderstrike or Beta Ray Bill over Thor. This is the original guy, but he looks a little bit different. As far as mechanics go, not only did he bring a new dynamic, he brought an entire new type of card to Marvel Snap, and that's why my number one is Symbiote Spider-Man.
Yeah, good pick.
It was the first Activate card. He reuses an ability. We talked about how much I liked redoing abilities. We love Wong, Odin, Absorbing Man, and Symbiote Spider-Man combines and reuses an ability. Oh man, put him in a deck with Strange Story. And was the first one of his kind. And who doesn't like that Spider-Man black costume? Even if you believe the original classic costume is the best, that even if you came to the Spidey black costume after the fact, that's just iconic. And yeah, we had a variant, but this was a whole new thing. It gives you some of the story aspect of the symbiote, introduced a whole new type of card, an iconic version of Spider-Man that introduces a new element to the game. That's pretty enticing.
Yeah, I'll never forget watching some of the Reddit vids where Spider-Man's merging with Galactus and, 12-point Galactus gets laid down there and you're like, okay, this card made an impact. And yeah, Activate is that is a great mechanic for this game. I really like it. And this is a good number one, in my opinion. I think it's a really good choice. Very good. There it is. Our top 5 most enticing season pass cards.
I've redeemed myself.
You have, too. I would say 100%. 100%. Thanks a lot for joining us. Make sure to tune in tomorrow for the next installment of Snap Material.